Alright folks, I'm back and it's time for our next wave of action figure unboxings and reviews. And we are kicking this one off with one that is, I'm not going to say near and dear to my heart, but this one is important to me because if you saw my original Broly review, I really loved that review myself personally. But when I uploaded the video, I don't know what happened with the audio, but the audio got crossed over top of itself. So we're not going to do a redo, but we're going to relook at a couple of key features and key points, because today we have base Broly to unpackage and review. So since we're going to be looking at his base form, we might as well take a look back at full power Broly as well. And on top of that, I got something even more special to go along with this review of Broly. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get this guy out of the box and get going. So let me just start this one off by saying, just from the look of the box, just looking at this thing from the box, have not opened it yet, I am really impressed with this figure just from looking at it in the box. I mean, it looks like it hits on so many of the points that you need to have a good action figure. It looks great. It has accessories. It's a figurine, so I know it's gonna have articulate. All the points, just looking at it in the box, looks like it hits on all of them. So we're not gonna waste any more time. We're gonna bust this guy open. Right off bat, first thing you notice, again, one of those scale size things with this figure. Like, this guy, he's not massive. He's not massive like full power Broly is, but he is on the bigger side to match his scale to what he is in the movie compared to Goku and Vegeta. And then on top of that, compared to his own self when he maxes out his power. Like, this dude is pretty spot on. And you can tell that this isn't his smallest form. You can tell he'd already kind of had that first power spike from the movie, because he's a little bit bigger than what he would be if he had just base in his base form. But I'm impressed just from initial impressions of him, just the feel of him. I like the paint job, like that paint and detail in his shoulder. I like that. So with initial impressions being over, let's go ahead and jump all the way into the review of this guy. So number one, likeness. If the figure doesn't look like he's supposed to, then why would we even bother buying it? We don't do that. We buy figures based on how good they look to their cartoon counterparts, and yeah, Broly hits it on the head with all three heads. He looks just like he should, from his base form all the way up to Super Saiyan. He looks exactly like he should. You have Ba's pelt, just like in his full power form. They did a great job separating those three pieces so that they wouldn't tear up easily. They got his look to his hair, the way it just falls. They even give you his collar that keeps him under control, his body armor, his paint, everything. Like, this guy looks great. And I expected nothing short. After seeing full power Broly, I expected them to get this one spot on. Now let's move on from likeness. Let's move on to that articulation, because I think this will be another quick, short little insert, and it's because it's a SH figurine, and it's because he hits all points of articulation into the wrist, elbows, shoulders, neck. I mean, all of it. And yes, even in that toe, the articulation is there, folks. Now, you do have to work this guy out because some of his joints are really stiff right out of the box. See, I was wondering how he would get that arm up, and bam, they did it. That's that articulation for you, being able to move and rotate. If you can move and rotate, you can pose. And if they can get into poses, I'm happy, because I love posing my action figures, and Broly is no exception. This guy's posability is great. But we're going to come back to posability. Right now, I want to talk about durability. It's just like always, solid figure. This thing is built like a tank, just like full power Broly is. But the one thing that I have noticed, just in having it out of the box in just a few minutes I've had it out, the joints, like his wrist is a lot more solid than full power Broly was. Like, this was something that was an issue to me on that first full power Broly. His wrists were a lot weaker and the hands would pop off a whole lot easier. It seems like they corrected that issue and have his wrist joints a lot more solid and secure, so you actually can hear that pop as it comes out, because it's a lot better. You can feel that snap, and it's the same thing with the heady, because the knob there is just a little bit thicker. It's a little bit more solidly built. It's not as thick as full power Broly, but it's thicker than your standard heads, to where it just feels a little more satisfying when you interchange the heads, to know that they're not going to come off, because you kind of feel that nice snug pop and snap that goes on there. So durability, I'm very impressed with some of the things that they corrected. One of the things that I don't know how I feel about this yet, but is that Saiyan armor, the back part of the Saiyan armor. So they went a different route with these shoulders versus what they standardly do with the shoulder pads. So instead of having the knob, the ball part of the knob being able to pop out, instead this time the armor comes out this way. So I personally don't know how I feel about this quite yet, because when it was that little ball, that ball was vulnerable to breaking off. Now you don't have to worry about that. That ball is not going to pop off or break off. But now what we have to worry about is the nodule that comes out of that ball breaking, because that looks pretty fragile. That doesn't look like it's too sturdy to really hold up to too many of those pieces of that shoulder plate or pieces of that body armor breaking off. It snaps back in there nice and easy. It has a great range of motion, so that as you move Broly's shoulder, this can move and get out of the way, so you can have him do whatever it is that you need him to do. That armor just gets where it needs to be. But like I said, that could be pretty fragile, the way that can just pop off of there, and that little node there doesn't look like it can hold up as well as the ball itself, having that ball socket that just popped in and popped out. That seemed like it was a little more sturdy. So just a little bit of a dink against that durability. But now we will move on from durability to the most impressive part of this piece, and that is the accessories. This guy comes with more than enough accessories to make it worth your while. Not only does he come with his base head, he comes with his Wrath head, which we see there, his Super Saiyan head, you have his necklace of control, and you of course have interchangeable hands. So you have 3 sets of fists. And I couldn't ask for more from this guy, because that is exactly what they gave us in the movie. He gave us base Broly. He had his necklace that that Paragus used to control him. He had his Wrath form when he first started fighting Goku and Vegeta, and then he finally went Super Saiyan when his dad, when Frieza killed his dad. So you get all the hairs that you need for this guy. His control necklace, and of course you get multiple hands. And so having this guy, I mean, he hits on everything as far as accessories, as far as articulation. He's great. Like, this is a great figure. I'm very impressed with him. I love the way he looks. The one big knock that I seem to have with this guy is actually in the posability. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, you hear me say this a lot when it comes to action figures. If they can articulate, they can be posed. Now, one thing that I will say that I give a knock against his posability, because he can move and be placed in any position that he needs to. But one of the things about this Broly that I noticed is he's back heavy. And what I mean by that is, to keep him from falling over backwards, you have to keep his chest almost pulled forward. You have to make him seem like he's leaning forward to keep him from falling backwards. When you get this guy in a nice pose where he's leaning forward and towering over somebody, he's gonna do fine. But when you try to get him upright just a little bit and just try to get his chest, then there it goes, just like that. So you have to really find those angles with this guy to keep him from wanting to topple over, because to me that would be a perfect pose, but just the slightest rock and he goes backwards. See, look at that, just touching him can send him backwards. So other than his back heaviness, I mean, posability is great, because he can again go in all those poses. But if you don't have the stands to hold them up in their poses, if you try to pose them like I do with them standing flat, be wary that he is one who is prone for tipping backwards. So you got to be real careful in the positions and the poses that you put him in. Make sure you have him balanced perfectly. That way you don't have to deal with that toppling over and toppling backwards. Now, that should be it with Broly. But we're going to take it just a little step further, because I feel that we have to make up for that mess up. And we're going to compare Broly to somebody. we're going to compare Broly to himself. And not just himself there, but his original self here. So we're going to see just how well Broly stacks up to himself, see how he's evolved over the years, and see just how good of a figure this guy really is as a whole.